I was talking with somebody the other day, actually a bunch of CEOs yesterday. I was talking with them and we talked about the tribal leader effect. So if you think about actually the tribal, if you think of a tribe, whatever you imagine in a tribe, but often the tribal leader would be the elder and would speak last. Everybody would do their thing and then the tribal leader would pronounce. And yet look at most businesses and the boss is like the one speaking first. Like, here's my meeting, this is the topic, this is my answer. You might pause for a second, anyone got any ideas? And no one really jumps in, so he just continues, tells all his ideas, or her ideas, normally a man probably, but and then anyone got anything else to add? And basically there's silence, or one or two people might, the kind of the bullish ones, one or two might weigh in and have a bit of a ding dong, but that'll be it. Everybody else will just sit there and let it pass. And so we don't get the power of the team operating, the power of the people, because that person's very charismatic and domineering, and they're probably loud in their style and can take up a lot of space. And so what if we went back a bit more to that tribal leader mentality, ask for the wisdom of the tribe, and then perhaps has to make a call,
of course,
right?
Or help that tribe improve the things that they've come up with, right? Rather than, so we're back to yes and rather than yes but. Someone said to me, how do I know if I'm on a journey to become a good leader? And I'll just use a couple of examples. A good leader will only ever be the last to speak because they're curious about everybody's view before they submit theirs. That's one sign. The second sign is, how many decisions have you made this week? And they'll say 5, 6. How many decisions you made this month? Don't know, 10, 20, 30. Okay, you're on a journey to becoming a great leader when you make no decisions, because your team make all the decisions. Your job is just to ask great questions, right? That's all it's about.
You're right. So that's a great example, right? That kind of zero decision mindset. Might be the CEO who said that, he judged his personal success by the number of kind of decisions hitting his desk that he could just kind of ratify, rubber stamp, say, great. Can he realize that if that wasn't the case, there was a business process failure somewhere along the line that he was requiring him to get involved at the last moment, right? Yeah, if they needed his input, they could ask him, 2 weeks before, right, as part of the process.
Of course.
So, but I think the point here is it's this distinction for me, if anyone's thinking about this transition between insight and action. So, for example, this is a big thing for me. I love helping leaders create an insight. One insight can change everything for people. But also sometimes it is a question of building these muscles, because often what made us successful in the past is perhaps making all the decisions. And now we're being asked to let go of our credibility, the thing that made us successful. And so, for example, one of my programs, it's called Impact Accelerator. I ran it because basically I realized that my clients wanted something to put some of their team through often to help up their levels. And we find that once they kind of figure out what I call observable leadership behaviors, so these are basically things which your other stakeholders are going to notice about you. So, for example, making decisions is a great one. Like, they're always just taking over and making everyone's decisions for them, and not letting other people do it. So, if you say, "Oh, well, that's a great behavior," and now we want to shift that, right? It doesn't happen overnight. So, what happens is, I think, two things. First of all, you need to monitor your own awareness. Am I even paying attention to those moments when I have a choice to make a decision or not make a decision? Well, actually, in that program, we get people to actually log each day their self-awareness of did I do my best to do that, or did I forget about it? And then the second part is then to actually ask the stakeholders, right? Are you actually seeing this person make fewer decisions and actually pass it to their team and actually coach the team instead of doing it themselves? And again, when you get that data, what you've created is a game that you can win. And most leaders, most people, when they're trying to become better leaders, they don't have a game they can win because they're not getting actually objective data. It's not what winning is, hasn't really been defined. And so they've just been told to listen more, empower more, be more empathetic, whatever it is. And my wife tells me all the time I could listen more, right? I mean, we can all listen more, right? It's like a never-ending thing. But if you don't create a game we can win, then it's quite hard to build those new leadership muscles.
One of the things that I find extremely powerful is when you say to a CEO or any senior leader, when was the last time you went to your team and said to them, how am I doing? How am I doing as a leader? What am I not getting right? What could I do better? Because that then moves into feedback. That then moves into challenging and critique. That then moves into the very areas 90% of the population are scared of. Because how do I deal with the answer to that question? Because if they turn and say, actually, yeah, you're not very good. You make me feel shit. You've always slagging me down. You think shit. And then you get to an answer and say, no, I'm not. And then you realize that maybe you're not the leader you hoped you were, because it's that ability to truly ask and seek feedback.
Yeah, and so I think the tool for that is actually, I call it the feedback triangle. So if you imagine like a triangle, and it's actually like it's on a scale. So basically, as the almost like a funnel, as it gets wider towards the end of the triangle, you're getting more general. As it gets narrower, you're getting more specific. And like if you imagine a line halfway through this triangle, so the top half of it, which is positive feedback, and the bottom half and below the line is negative feedback, right? So when you're being general, you can give really positive feedback like you're awesome, and you can give really bad feedback like it's rubbish, right? But it's very general because you got all that wiggle room. But as you start to make it more specific, the judgment falls out of it. So if you get a bit more specific, and it's something like, I love the way that you, started that presentation, or, you lost everybody at the end of that presentation. It's kind of getting more specific, but there's still a judgment. But when you actually get to the ultimate specificity, it's just a fact, and it makes people less defensive, or it even then becomes a question like, did you notice that the engagement level seemed to drop in the second half of your presentation? It's just a fact. The judgment is now gone.